The morning of June 25th, 1876, broke quietly over the rolling ridges and coulees of the Little Bighorn. A gentle wind hissed through the tall summer grass, and the smell of sage hung heavy in the stillness. It was the kind of morning that might have seemed peaceful to anyone unaware of the storm gathering just beyond the horizon. For the 7th U.S. Cavalry under Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, that deceptive calm was the last they would ever know. Nathan Short, a private in Company C, was one of the men who awoke that morning with no idea that his name would echo through history. Barely into his 20s, Short had joined the cavalry for the same reasons as many of his comrades: steady pay, a chance for adventure, perhaps an escape from a hard or uneventful life. But in the Montana sun that day, the adventure turned into a nightmare. The Lakota Sioux, Northern Cheyenne and Arapaho warriors, thousands strong and fueled by the knowledge they were fighting for their very way of life, descended upon Custer's isolated command with overwhelming force. The battle did not unfold as legend would later paint it. There was no glorious singular last stand. Instead, it was chaos, men cut down in groups, some firing until the last cartridge was spent, others overrun before they could raise a rifle. On the ridges near Calhoun Hill and in the gullies between, soldiers fell in clusters, fighting to hold ground that could not be held. Panic swept the lines as positions collapsed one after another. Somewhere amid this maelstrom, Nathan Short made a choice. Whether he was ordered to carry a final desperate message to Major Reno or acted on his own in a bid for survival, we may never know. What we do know is that he mounted his horse and rode hard. Picture him. Dust caked on his uniform, the acrid stench of gunpowder still burning his throat, his mount staggering under the strain as they plunged into the wild, hostile Rosebud country. Perhaps he believed he could reach help. Perhaps he simply wanted to live a little longer. Either way, that ride, lonely, dangerous, and doomed, became his legacy. 3 weeks later, far from the killing fields of the Little Bighorn, General George Crook's scouts made a grim discovery along the Rosebud. They found a horse's skeleton still tethered to a pin, its master lying dead nearby. A carbine rested beside him, untouched. His felt hat bore the crossed sabers of the 7th Cavalry, and his gear was marked with the number 50. To the scouts, and later to Sergeant Daniel Canepe, one of Reno's escapees who knew the man personally, there was no doubt. It was Nathan Short of Company C. The story did not end there. It grew. Survivors of the 7th carried the tale, retelling it at reunions and in letters to historians like Walter Camp, who devoted years to collecting first-hand accounts of the battle. They swore it was Short. Some claimed he was on an official mission, carrying Custer's final orders. Others believed he was a straggler who broke free in desperation, only to be overtaken by exhaustion or wounds. Whatever the truth, his lonely ride captured imaginations and became a symbol of devotion, or, at the very least, of a man who refused to die where he fell. In 1983, more than a century after his death, descendants of the 7th Cavalry placed a marker near the site of his discovery. The inscription reads, "Many believe these are the remains of Private Nathan Short, Company C, carrying a message from General Custer." The words memorialize not just a man, but a story of grit and tragedy that still resonates today. Yet even this legend leaves room for doubt. Was it truly Nathan Short who rode those 20 miles? Historians like Douglas Ellison and Robert Doran caution that the evidence is circumstantial at best. No official report from 1876 names him. Perhaps it was another nameless trooper, swallowed by history and wrongly given Short's name. But in some ways, the uncertainty strengthens the tale. It blurs the line between myth and memory, between what is provable and what is meaningful. And maybe that is why Nathan Short's ride endures, because it speaks to something universal about the men who fought that day. It is the story of refusing to surrender even when defeat is absolute, of riding on when every instinct tells you there is no escape. Whether Short carried Custer's last orders or only his own desperate hope, his final act echoes across time as a testament to the will to survive, or at least to die trying. In that ride across the Rosebud country, Nathan Short ceased to be just another casualty buried in the endless lists of the fallen. He became the face of every soldier who fought for a few more breaths, who carried a message no one would ever hear, who died alone on the edge of history.